We're going to call this Coffee Talks with Mr. Anger without the coffee breath. And we have a lesson today that I've helped a lot of students with over the years doing the Economics 1141 pace. And when you get to page J in the homework, it refers to a problem on page 13 in the text part of the pace. So I want us to walk through that problem that's in the pace, first of all, and explain that to you and help you see where that math comes from. It's comparing two terms, and really the pace just takes like 2 paragraphs to explain it, and all of a sudden you're having to do a problem in the homework, and it shows up on a checkup as well. So let's make sure you understand the math. That's the hardest part. There's 2 terms here. One is technical efficiency, which is simply using as few inputs as possible to produce the same output. Let's talk about that first. We have 2 factories here, both producing cornflake cereal. And they're both producing 4,000 boxes of cereal. So we're producing the same amount for both factories. The difference is factory A requires 1,000 tons of corn coming in and uses 100 workers to produce that 4,000 boxes. Factory B, on the other hand, uses 500 tons of corn and 300 workers, 3 times as many workers, to produce 4,000 boxes of cereal. Now, just looking at the technical efficiency, we're just counting what are the total number of inputs. So for this factory, we're going to add these up and get 1,100 inputs. And for this factory, you just add the 2 and get 800 inputs. That's all there is to it. So just comparing those 2 numbers, which one is more technically efficient? Well, technically, factory B would be more efficient because that uses fewer inputs. Now let's talk about the economic efficiency. Because for that, we're going to compare what is the cost? How much money does it cost to produce the 4,000 boxes if we have these inputs? And we know that the corn itself costs $5 per ton just to purchase the corn. Then we have to pay the workers. And so we're paying them $10 for every ton that they process. So let's do the math over here. This first factory, we're going to take the 1,000 tons of corn times $5 per ton, and so we get a cost of $5,000. We have 100 workers, and we are multiplying that times $10 per ton times the 1,000 tons. So we have $1 million, $5,000 up there, for a grand total of $1,005,000. So that's the economic efficiency of this first factory. Now let's do the same thing with the second factory. We have 500 tons of corn at $5 each, which is going to be $2,500. We have 300 workers at 500 tons times $10 per ton. So the answer is in the pace, but let's get our calculators out and do the math here. 300 times 500 times 10, 1,500,000. Plus the 2,500 gives us the grand total of $1,502,500. So even here, comparing these two, the economic efficiency would still be for factory A. Now let's stop there and review that problem before we look at the problem on the bottom of page J. All right, now let's look at problem J, or the problem on the bottom of page J in your activity pack. The PACE calls it Factory X, so we'll call it the Extra Good Shirt Company. And then over here, the Y Shirt Company, so we'll call it the Yahoo Shirts Incorporated. And let's compare what's happening here. We have some inputs, 2,600 yards of material coming into the Extra Good Shirt Company, and they use 300 employees. Result, 1,000 shirts. Yahoo Shirt Company has a few more yards, 3,000 yards compared to 2,600. More material, fewer workers, 175 workers, producing the same number of shirts. So let's first calculate what would be the technical efficiency. Remember, the technical efficiency is just counting the number of inputs to decide which one has the fewer number of inputs. So that's pretty simple here. We're going to take 2,600 and you're going to add the 300. And I'm not going to do the math for you because you can finish that problem and put the answer in your PACE. Let's do the same thing over here. We have a total of 3,000 yards and 175 employees. And when you add those two numbers together, you have the total number for the technical efficiency. And then you can compare the two to see which factory is technically more efficient. Now, the one that takes a little more thinking and a little more math, because there are several steps involved, and this is usually where students get hung up, is thinking through the math in this problem to do the economic efficiency. So let's figure out the total costs involved for the Extra Good Shirt Company. We know that it's $3.50 per yard for the material. So let's take the 2,600 yards times $3.50 per yard. Multiply that out and you'll get a number. That's the cost just for the material. Then we're going to take the 2,600 yards and we have to divide that by 100 because it's $15 per 100 yards processed. So we're going to take 26 times $15, and that's times the number of workers, times the number of employees. And that's how we get the second number. And then you're going to add those two numbers together to get the economic efficiency. Now let's do the same thing over here with the Yahoo Shirt Company. We're going to take the 3,000 yards times $3.50 per yard. Divide by 100, so we have 30 times $15 times the 175 employees. And that's going to be our total cost for processing the material. And then when you add those, you'll get the grand total, which is the economic efficiency. So do the math. Get your own calculator out, calculate those numbers, and then these numbers right here go in your PACE for that particular problem. Make sure you understand the steps involved in doing this, including this step here where the 26, the PACE tells us that it's per 100 yards processed. So that's why we had to divide by 100 to figure out how many groups have to be multiplied times $15, and then that's times the number of employees. It's per employee. Now you get your total cost for each of these and can compare them. There's a very similar problem on the checkup involving making cheese and bringing in products of milk and then figuring out the cost per unit and figuring out the total technical and economic efficiency. So review this problem, make sure you understand what you're doing before you get to the checkup.